the Age of Uncertainty podcast by Nigel Fantasy Scrum Team.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Age of Uncertainty Well, it's not actually a podcast, is it really? There's no audio version available. I guess we've got to admit that what this really is a video show. So welcome to the latest episode of the Age of Uncertainty video show. It's good to see you back. And we have had a refactoring. Well, not necessarily a refactoring, because refactoring is about changing the internal behaviour while keeping the same external behaviour. As you can see here, we've changed the UI. Yes, I've moved to a new office. I've upgraded my location. No, what I've actually done is just rotate my office 180 degrees. So now I'm sat the other side of the office. So now you can see my bookcase with my carefully curated books. So this video today is all about Scrum, or more precisely, fantasy Scrum teams. So this fantasy Scrum team idea I've had is all based off of something called fantasy football. Now, I don't know if you know about fantasy football or have played the game. I remember it dominated the office a good old 15 years ago, where you would select your own. Now, for us, it was soccer, but if you're in America, it would be American football, and I believe it's gone to all sports these days. But you would basically play a game buying and purchasing football players. Then as the football season ran, you gained points from how those football players did in their respective real games. So effectively using real data to create a sort of faux simulation. At the end of the season, you see which team that you have created has done the best compared to your colleagues or your friends or your competitors' teams. It was great fun, and I can remember spending far too long on a Friday afternoon adjusting that football team appropriately to get the best advantage when they played on Saturday. So I had the idea, if you have fantasy football, fantasy baseball, fantasy American football, I even saw fantasy wrestling, which is kind of a fantasy on top of a fantasy. If we can do that there, why not do that in our world and have fantasy Scrum team? I'm going to keep this video as light and as fun as possible. So if you come here looking for any dirt to be dished on anyone or any negativity, that's not this video, I'm afraid to say. We're just going to look at it from a positive point of view. And I'm going to bring in a lot of weird and wonderful things into my fantasy Scrum team, because after all, it's a fantasy. So the first thing we start with is who should be on the team, right? No, actually, we probably need to start off with what's the product we're going to make. Well, no, actually, we probably need to start off with what's the problem we're trying to solve. Oh my gosh, that is a big thing, and that could really set this team up to be a very different animal. I'm going to use this video to try and focus a bit more on in the software world. So I'm going to pretend we're trying to build a Scrum team for a software project, but we don't know the kind of project it's going to be. So we're going to have to build that uncertainty into our capability of our team. So role number one then must be product owner, I guess. So who can we go with for product owner? We need to have someone who can be an ambassador for the product, someone who can understand the product space, or do we? So for me, good product owners are subject matter experts who have good contacts and good connectivity into the business. They can be a sponsor, they have a bit of power and can make decisions. Now, we don't know the business we're going to be working with. We don't know the subject matter we're going to be working with. So we can't really pick someone of great subject matter expertise. And that rules out a lot of good product owners in industry already. Could we shoot for the skies? Have someone like Elon Musk, a great visionary leader, someone who's trying to make a dent in the universe? Well, for me, and you know I said I wouldn't be negative, but Elon Musk is an interesting character who I'm not totally sure I would like to work with. I'm afraid to say I get the smell of a Bond villain off of him sometimes, and Bond villains never do the simplest thing that could possibly work. So I'm going to rule out Elon. Sorry. Well, if we go in a real fantasy direction, do we go for someone like Gandalf the Grey? He was a very wise man, understood the world he lived in, had great plans. If you look at Lord of the Rings, Gandalf came out with a very interesting quest he wanted to go on, yet he had that giant falcon in his back pocket. If he had just flown in on that falcon at the start, surely we could have simplified this entire thing right down. That would have been really useful, Gandalf. Wizards just never do the simplest thing that could possibly work, so we're going to rule him out. So let's look into the agile space itself. Now, I can see a few prime contenders for my fantasy scrum team that I would pick, and I'm going to go through them step by step. I know a good product owner out there at the moment, the chief product owner of the Scrum Alliance, Howard. Howard's doing a great job there, setting a vision of a new, modern, world-leading agile organisation. He's a great subject matter expert in that field, but again, remember, we've ruled out subject matter expertise. We need someone who can cross-apply everywhere. And so Howard is a great option, but I'm going to look at some other ones. So we could go with someone like Eric Ries, the inventor of Lean Startup. That would be a really interesting case, wouldn't it? But again, a lot of his work is standing on the shoulders of giants, like Steve Blank's work, so maybe not. Or we could go with someone like Roman, my friend Roman. Roman's written some of the greatest early books, and in fact just got a book coming out now in terms of product management and Scrum. Roman could be a great person to fill that role as well. So we could look at someone like Jeff Patton, one of the sort of product management gurus in the industry. A lot of the work I do is based off of his work, not just story mapping, but a range of other things. But the one I think I would pick is probably Alex Osvalder, with his work in business model generation, value proposition design, etc. I think his work is really, for me, about agilifying business models more than just agilifying products. And I'm thinking having someone in this role who's really, if it's going to be a fancy team, really cutting edge, agilifying of the entire problem, the entire unmet need, the entire concept around our work. I think that'd be really powerful to have that person in the product owner role. So I think I'm going to cast Alex for my product owner in my fantasy Scrum team. Okay, the next role is going to be, for me, Scrum Master. Now, in my fantasy team, I want to cast someone as Scrum Master who's really actually been in this job. And you know what? That's going to rule out a lot of famous people in Agile who have talked about this, but never actually done this Scrum Master role. Even the inventors of Scrum, Taguchi, Nanaka, Sutherland, Schwaber, none of them have actually been Scrum Masters, have they? And so we're going to have to look a bit deeper to find a good Scrum Master for us. And for my fantasy Scrum Master, I think I'll pick Jiminy Cricket, the little grasshopper from Pinocchio who sits on Pinocchio's shoulder giving him loads of advice. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Pinocchio. Now, Pinocchio ignores a lot of that advice, but that's better than the original grasshopper in the original book, which I think gets killed by Pinocchio in a couple of pages. Oh, doesn't that feel apt for Scrum Mastery? But I think Jiminy would be lovely in that role. I don't know if I want a rock star Scrum Master. A Scrum Master should be humble and human and show humility. There's the humility reference for this video. So I may not want someone who's a big ego in that role. So really, what's the problem space is going to define this? This is where I'll need to know a little bit more about the mission I feel to cast this role effectively. If we're working in a very political setting, I know I would go to my first Scrum Master, Jeff Watts. He was great at that type of thing, helping in a large organisation, helping us swim amongst those sharks. So in that type of setting, I think he would be great. But if we're looking for a really engineer-focused Scrum team, maybe we want someone who can actually be a developer as well. I know a lot of people out there like to have Scrum Master developers. What about someone like Rachel Davies, who wrote the original book on Agile coaching, yet is also a developer to this day? But what about the millions of us who haven't written books, who aren't big and famous? Oh, by the way, this purple thing up here, that's my book. That's coming never. That'll be an entire video on its own, that darn book. But I digress. They say fantasy authors, people who write books that never get published, fanfic, vanity books. They tend to often introduce themselves or insert themselves in the story. I believe it's called a Mary Sue online, where they add themselves to the tale and of course make themselves the biggest, the strongest, the best character. Put themselves in Harry Potter's books, but make themselves better than Harry Potter. They're a Jedi that's slightly stronger than Luke. They put themselves into Gone with the Wind, but this time they are replacing Scarlett O'Hara. That type of Mary Suing is regarded as terrible in fantasy fiction. But this is my fantasy Scrum team, and I can get away with anything I want, so I'm going to make myself Scrum Master of this team. Yes, I know, I'm Mary Suing it. I'm putting myself in a position I don't deserve, but hey ho, it's my team, and I think I would love to work with all these people on the ground. Now, talking of fantasy, who would you put in this role? I don't necessarily mean real people either, from the world of fiction, from the world of non-fiction, from the breadth and width of humanity. Who would you cast in the Scrum Master role? Because I think it's actually quite a difficult role to cast from sort of narrative fiction or even non-fiction, because that type of servant leader hasn't always been the type of person who's been pushed to the forefront in history. You could of course look at people like Gandhi, who had a huge influence on the world, but I'm not sure he'll take up a place on our Scrum team. I think I've got a better chance of casting Gandalf. If we're going to pick from real life, and if I can't pick myself, I think I'd probably pick my old family vicar. The vicar from when I was a young boy. He was a moderate family friend, but a great person, humble, showing humility, very clever, and listened. Was a real listener, was a real support. He was the sort of first life coach I ever met before I even understood what the concept of a life coach was. Now, I don't know if he knew anything about software. He's long since passed away. I don't know if he'd even want to work in this type of thing. But that type of human being, I think, would be great in this job. So if I can't pick me, I'd probably pick him. So we want our good Scrum team to be cross-functional. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, we could have a team of experts, each person bringing a special skill to the team to help us deliver our problem. A bit like one of my favourite TV shows from the 1980s, The A-Team. Now, as you can see from the A-Team video there, the A-Team was a crack commando unit sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit. These men promptly escaped from a maximum security stockade onto the Los Angeles underground, where they survive as soldiers of fortune. If you've got a problem, if you need help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team. Now, the A-Team themselves were made up of 4 or 5, depending on the series you're watching, but I'm going to go with the classic 4. 4 major characters, each with their own special skills. Hannibal Smith, the leader, who did the planning. Face, Templeton Peck, the swindler, the con artist who got them the materials. B.A. Baracus, who was the muscle, but far more importantly, he was the team's engineer. He built a lot of their solutions, and actually was a childhood hero. And finally, Howling Mad Murdoch. Yes, I know the name's insensitive, but it was the 1980s. One week he was Napoleon, another week he thought he was a crab, another week he thought he was a superhero, for entertainment purposes. But he could fly their plane, so he was the pilot. He was the only person who could fly the plane. So each of them had individual skills, working together, fighting crime. Dun dun dun, dun dun dun. Except we have a problem. In these TV shows, no one ever got hurt. It was a kids' TV show. They fired thousands of bullets at each other each week. No one ever got hurt. In real life, you fire bullets at people, people die. Probably poor old Murdoch. And now we've got no one who can fly the plane. You see, that team had what's known in the industry as a very low bus factor, or a very low truck number, as they would say in the Americas. What do we mean by bus factor? How many people in your project could be hit by a bus before your project fails? Or how many could be hit by a truck before your project fails? Well, for many of us, I'm afraid to say it's 1. And we're suffering from an international crisis where we could lose a colleague at any moment. Ouch. And one of us gets sick and we all catch the proverbial cold. Double ouch. That's why we don't want Scrum teams like this, cross-functional in terms of every person having a function, a skill, and the team being cross-functional. Wouldn't it be nice if everyone on the team could be cross-functional, i.e. everyone can do everything? That idea of everyone being cross-functional seems to be a model that like actual real soldiers use, in the battles. Every soldier's a trained medic. The trouble with that model is, of course, they're not like doctors, are they? They can sort of give you some morphine and call up a helicopter to rescue you, but they're not really medics in a great way. They do triage. They're not really doctors who can do medicine. They're a jack of all trades, but a master of none. So what we look for in Scrum is team members like this. T people, cross-functional, generalising specialists, or I would like to say Mr. T rather than B.A. Baracus. Huh? Man, you're a hard audience. But that Mr. T idea of someone having a strong specialisation but also a broad base of skills is a really powerful model that we want to have in a really great Scrum team. So you can see, a fantasy Scrum team shouldn't be about having the best superstar team members. Each of these are experts in their own field, but working together, that's a very delicate, fragile plan. Just look at Ocean's 11 here. All of them with their own specific role in that mission, and it only takes one of them getting into trouble, and the entire mission, the entire caper is in jeopardy. That is why people will bring their own skills to the table, their own individual skills, but we're going to learn and pair and learn together to help share those skills across the team. And that's why I think in any fantasy Scrum team I want to keep open that option of mob programming. The idea of one person driving the keyboard and everyone else contributing appropriately. I think that needs to be available in our repertoire to enable us to handle really strong, really difficult situations. So as a Scrum Master, I got my Scrum Master hat on. Now I've made myself fantasy Scrum Master of this team. I need to be thinking about how can I help these people grow this way as well as deepen their knowledge. But what about the most important aspect of a Scrum team, which is the development team themselves, the people doing the actual creative work, turning fantasy of an idea into the reality of product? Who should be on that Scrum team? There are really clever people out there that would be great to have on my Scrum team. People like Angie Jones, I've been really liking her tweets recently, or Lisa Crispin, one of the famous authors of the book Agile Testing. I think if you're going to have someone, get someone who's actually right there on the coalface doing it, still doing it, and has written all about it. That could help us bring some quality assurance conversations into our marvellous team. So we've got Angie and we've got Liz. So where else could I go? I know where I'd go. I'd go straight back to the source, the original extreme programming team in Chrysler, and raid that a little bit. So I would get Kent Beck. He was regarded as a coach for that team back in the day, and he could be a great extreme programming development coach for us today. I would also bring in some of those veterans from that team. Chet Hendrickson, Ron Jeffries, a great pair. You see, I love extreme programming. I'm a huge fan of it. Test-driven development, automating testing, continuous integration. But the thing that I think is overlooked loads is pairing. I find pairing incredibly hard, and for me, that's where the value comes from. Chet and Ron have paired for years, so they know each other well, they can jump straight into the problem, but also they can help teach that to the rest of the team. Because I could go around casting other famous people and putting them in these roles. And so what I would want to do is make the 3 or 4 other developers on the team to get young, hungry, diverse people. So my new team members, I want them to be young at heart, hungry in terms of soul, in terms of learning, and diverse in thought. Okay, if I can get 3 or 4 people like that, maybe some graduates, maybe some new hires from different companies, maybe some people who have been revigorated from our company that we're going to, but people who are interested to try new, interesting to bring something new to the game. Maybe they'll have prior experiences. They don't have to be graduates. Maybe we could get in like a UX expert or someone like this from the ground, someone who's really good with user interfaces. I don't mind. But the idea is they'll bring something to the table as well, but also be there to learn and grow. Because how can you be a superstar team if you aren't sharing that stardust with everyone else? I think a genuinely great fantasy Scrum team doesn't just deliver great products, it helps other teams learn and catalyzes other teams to help them build great products. So I want our team to be an exemplar, and we would start off eating our own dog food, drinking our own champagne. We have 3 or 4 of us, young people, old people, people from the company, people from outside, people with skills, but new people, not famous people. But my fancy would be bringing them on that team, growing up their skill, growing up their capability, and then when this product development is over, we can share that capability further and faster. I did tell you it was my fantasy, and that's what I was fantasizing about, using great product delivery to change organizations. Well, we say it's a fantasy, but is it really? I remember back in the early 90s, Manchester United taking their youth team players and playing them in the first team. And I remember Alan Hansen, who, if you don't know, was a stern commentator at the time, saying, "You'll never win anything with kids." Well, it turns out people don't stay kids forever, because that team, those players, had potential, and given the opportunity, that potential flourished, and they became superstars. Potential is such a powerful tool. That's why I want that potential on my Scrum team, and that's why I don't want my Scrum team all made up of superstars of today, because guess what? I want them to be the superstars of tomorrow. Okay, so let's look at our team. Maybe it's me as Scrum Master, Alex as PO, we got Kemp, we got Ron, we got Chet, we got these new people as well. Put them together, give us an organisation. I don't think we can go far wrong. Mind you, the price will be sky high, but it's my fantasy, and in my fantasy, money's no object. Whoops, I've just realised I forgot to mention my real fantasy dev team. Anyway, let's do it now. I would start off with Spock from Star Trek for his logic and his mathematics. I would take Dr. Brown from Back to the Future for his time travel. I'd have Man-at-Arms from He-Man for his wise wisdom and technology. I would take Reed Richards, the cleverest man on Earth, from the Fantastic Four. And finally, I'd wrap it up with the Doctor, the Time Lord from Gallifrey, who can do just about everything. You see, this Scrum team gives me ultimate flexibility to handle many an uncertain situation. That's this video. I've enjoyed it, but I want it to be the start for you. I want you to have a think about what will be on your fantasy Scrum team. As always, please could you share these things? Share them widely. Could you please subscribe on YouTube if you don't already, or at least share it out. Liking or favoriting, or share it on LinkedIn, where that seems to get the most traction for us. Anything like that would really help me get this message further and spread this information out there whilst we're all in this together, stuck inside. That's the end. I've enjoyed it. I hope you have also. I'll see you again next time. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Next episode, the Nigel scale versus scaling frameworks.